Okay, this one is exciting. Now, imagine that you had a technique or a tool that you could apply to any sort of unwanted emotional response, um, emotional state, habit, pattern, behavior, really of any kind, anything that you want to change quickly and easily. And you could use this tool and this technique to change that unwanted state within a minute or even less. That would be pretty awesome, right? Well, introducing EFT, also known as Emotional Freedom Technique, also known as tapping. Emotional Freedom Technique is, or EFT from now on is what we'll call it, is an incredible, simple, easy to use, transformational technique that you can use anytime, any place to change even long-held patterns and behaviors and emotional responses. Even things like, lifelong smoking habits, fear of heights, anxiety responses. All of these things can benefit from and be transformed by EFT. So what is EFT? EFT is a system and a technique which is based on a couple of things. It's based on acupressure points and acupuncture points, so meridian points in the body. And it's also based on the science of pattern interruption. So let's talk a little bit about patterns and how we experience problems in our lives. Problem patterns are things like, automatic responses, habits that we feel we don't have any control over, that we just kind of repeat over and over and over again, and we're like, why do I keep doing that? I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to react this way anymore, and yet we keep doing it over and over again. Well, what's happened is that our nervous system and our neural pathways have temporarily been programmed to respond in a certain way. When certain triggers are activated, certain responses follow, certain patterns follow. Now, if we don't do anything to those patterns, they just simply play themselves out until the pattern is exhausted and until another pattern takes its place. For most people, this is a fairly quick process, and it's something that happens like somebody picks up a cigarette, they get stressed and they pick up a cigarette and they light it and then they start smoking. That's the pattern. For some people, there's a anxiety response that comes up maybe when they get in the car and they're about to drive onto the freeway and they get this panicky feeling. Other times, these patterns can kind of start to perpetuate themselves, and feels like it's this longer pattern, but really it's just shorter patterns strung together one by one, just feeding off the previous one. So sort of like that idea of if you have one thought, one angry thought might lead to another angry thought, and that angry thought then leads to another angry thought. It might seem like there's this continuous long stretch of anger, but really it's just segments, thought by thought by thought. So what we want to do is identify those patterns and to interrupt those patterns. So that's one of the things that EFT does. It helps us to stop the pattern, to just stop it right in its tracks, so that basically you're able to respond in a new way. You don't have to follow through on the old pattern, the old behavior, the old emotional response. You can create some space for something new. Another thing is that when we're doing this emotional freedom technique, these different patterns of tapping on different parts of our body, we're actually rewiring our nervous system and our neural pathways to respond in those new ways. And I'm going to walk you through a whole process here of how this works. But those are really the basics of the power of EFT, why it works, and why it's so amazing as a transformational technique. So how do we do this? How do we do EFT? In this module, there is a PDF which has a diagram, which has all the steps of of a simple but comprehensive EFT pattern, and it gives instructions. But I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it here. Now, I might not hit all of the points that are on that PDF, but just know that there are different patterns, there are different ways of applying this technique. There's all sorts of opportunities out there for doing things in whatever way works best for you. But the one that I'm going to show you here and the one in the PDF are basically the same. There's just a couple of variations there. So the first thing that we want to do when we're about to do EFT is we want to identify an emotional response or a pattern or a behavior or a habit, something that we want to change, right? Something that has been a problem for us, that's gotten in the way of us fully experiencing and enjoying our lives. So identify that for yourself. So whether that's, I don't know, for me, I first learned this technique and I applied it for a fear of needles. So maybe it's a fear of needles. Maybe it's a fear of, going to the doctor's office. Maybe it is that, feeling of panic or anxiety that you feel, before getting on the freeway. Or maybe it's a behavioral thing like smoking. Whatever it is, just go ahead and tune into that feeling and just imagine the last time that you felt it. Bringing all of your senses online and really experience it. So that way you're starting to feel the discomfort of that feeling. You want to bring this feeling up so that you're feeling it, so it's pretty uncomfortable. So on a scale of 1 to 10 on the discomfort level, you want to bring it up to about a 6 or 7 at the minimum. Once you kind of have tuned into that, you feel it and you're experiencing it in your body, we're going to go ahead and go through the tapping sequence now. So while you're feeling that feeling, and I'm just going to go ahead and use my example of fear of needles. So I'm going to use that as the example, but you just fill in the blank whenever I use that for myself. You just fill in that blank with whatever issue it is that you're working on. So first of all, we've tuned in, we feel that experience. So I'm going to feel that fear of needles and just imagine the last time that I felt it. Go through all of the details of it and, imagine myself in the doctor's office and the nurse comes in and, they break open the needle and they swab my arm and I'm starting to already feel nervous and a little bit nauseated and get that kind of queasy feeling. So I really tune into that and allow myself to feel that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say out loud to myself, even though I have a fear of needles, I totally, completely love and accept myself. Even though I have a fear of needles, I totally and completely love and accept myself. And as I'm doing that, I'm just going to start tapping here. I'm going to take one hand, I'm going to go over to the opposite hand and start tapping with, either, 2 fingers or 4 fingers. I do it with 4 fingers. And just start tapping on the fleshy part of the underside of the hand there, that little karate chop point. And so you're going to say this sentence, this line over a couple of times. Even though I have a fear of needles, I totally, completely love and accept myself, as you're tapping there. And you do that for a few repetitions, maybe 5 seconds or less than 10 seconds. And then you're going to come up to the top of your head, up to this little fontanelle point right here, and just start tapping there. And again, now we're going to switch things up a little bit. And now you're just going to say fear of needles. So just saying what it is that you're wanting to change. So for me, it's fear of needles while tapping there. Now I'm going to come down to the inside of my eyebrow on the same side of my tapping hand, the inside of my eyebrow, and just say fear of needles. And then, again, 5 to 10 seconds, moving down to the next spot, which is this corner the corner of my eye right here, and just tapping here, fear of needles. And now I'm going to start adding some new suggestions here, letting go of that fear of needles. And then I'm going to start tapping here underneath my eye, right kind of the top of my cheekbone here. Might feel a little bit of a tingling feeling as you are tapping there, and just saying, letting go of that fear of needles, releasing it now completely. And then we come down and start tapping just below the nose, just above the upper lip, and just tapping here, releasing that fear of needles, relaxing more and more. And you might even start to notice your breathing starting to slow down. And then 5 to 10 seconds later, go ahead and start tapping at this point here, which is the point just below the lower lip, but above the chin, right in that little valley right there. Releasing that fear of needles. And you can say whatever soothing, calming, encouraging, kind suggestions that you want to give yourself at this point. Just releasing, letting go. I'm okay. I know that I'm safe. Now we're going to come down, we're going to start tapping here on the collarbone. And here you can either tap with your fingers or you can make a little fist and just kind of gently thud on your collarbone up here. And that in and of itself can be a very soothing way to just kind of like on the fly, if you just need to do something really quick, just tapping yourself here while giving yourself some soothing suggestions can be really helpful. So I'll just say, just releasing that fear of needles for good, letting it go completely. I'm totally safe. I'm well, I'm loved. And now we're going to come up here and we're going to start tapping under here. This is a little bit awkward, okay? It's a bit, got to kind of get your arm in this kind of awkward position. But basically it is that you're going to start tapping on the spot that is, for guys, it's just right across, if you just follow a line across the nipple. For women, it's just kind of like where the bra strap might be, right about there. And just go ahead and start tapping that point right here. And again, giving yourself soothing suggestions. I totally, completely love and accept myself. I'm safe, I'm well, relaxing more and more. And now finally, we're going to come around to this point right here. So this little point right here in between your ring finger and your pinky finger, and just tapping right there. And just saying, releasing this fear once and for all, feeling wonderful in every way. And just noticing how you feel. Noticing the breathing has slowed down. And now, at this point, what you want to do is now go ahead and go back to the original memory of the time that you felt that unwanted response or habit or feeling. And go ahead and just notice the difference as you go back and try hard in vain to find that feeling, to find that old feeling. Now, a lot of times you'll find that you can't find that feeling at all, that it's just completely gone. Sometimes it might be a little bit, but quite a bit less than what you originally experienced. So if it was a 7 when you started, it's down to a 3 or a 4 now. What you can do at that point is just go ahead and go through the process again and just go through the whole gamut, the whole sequence, just going through the same tapping points and saying very similar things to yourself. When you're starting out, you can say something along the lines of, even though I still have a little bit of fear of needles, I totally, completely love and accept myself. And then we come up to the top, still have a fear of needles. Letting go of that last little bit of fear. Releasing it, relaxing. I'm safe. I'm okay. Loved and lovable. Feeling good about myself. Just feeling at ease. Easier and easier to let this go, replacing it with good feelings. Coming down here, relaxing more and more, letting it all go, transforming and changing now. Releasing the last little bits of fear, just releasing it all, letting it all dissolve. And there we go. And then you can go ahead and then check again and go back to that memory. Try hard in vain to find that feeling. By the time you pass through this sequence 2, 3, 4 times, you're going to notice it decreases more and more and more until you start to rewire your whole nervous system, your neural pathways, and your subconscious mind for a different response, something new. True story, I used this technique for fear of needles several years ago. And maybe there's a coincidence here, I don't know, but I just had an appointment this morning to give blood. So something I always wanted to do, I couldn't do because I had this fear of needles, but I've been doing it now for the past several years, every 3 months. So it's definitely very powerful, very transformative. It's something you can use to change any emotional response, anything that's no longer serving you, anything that's holding you back, anything that you want to change and transform. You can use it for belief systems. I've worked with people and helped them change their attitudes and feelings around money and abundance and success. So really the sky's the limit here for how you can use this. So access the PDF. You've got all the information there. There's also a document down there too with some suggestions for positive things that you can be telling yourself as you're going through this process, going through the sequence of the steps. So again, use this technique. It is absolutely amazing. I use it in my life all the time, and I encourage all my clients to do the same.